Hey guys, Grindhead Jim, fresh back from Retropalooza Houston 2021 to talk about Retropalooza Houston 2021.
Hey kid, yeah, you. Everyone thinks toys are fun, but this is a channel for adults. Yeah, I said it. If you're under the age of 18, go get your parents before you come in here. If you're under the age of 13, scram. Let's get on with the show.
Oh, I had such a tremendous time down there. We drank too much, we ate too much, we slept not enough, and there was stuff everywhere. So before I get into it, I want to let you know there are pickups in this video, some toys, some games, some other stuff. It's not a huge haul. That wasn't what I was there for. That was a bonus. I was there for a panel for the Game Chasers movie, which I'll be talking about as well. So without further ado, let's dive right in. My good friend Rob from Order 42 came down from where he's at, north of the city, to pick me up on his way. We went the whole way together, hung out the majority of the weekend, and drove all the way back together. How he tolerated that, I will never, ever know. But if you're watching, pal, I really appreciate you putting up with me. I had a great time, and I will travel with you anywhere. My man likes to drive in style, and man, he got us there and back safely, quickly, with minimal fuss. So thank you for that. Once we arrived in Pasadena, which is just outside of Houston, we saw that setup was well underway. Saw a lot of familiar faces. We saw, of course, Jay, his brother Tim, Allie, who does a lot of show running for Jay as well. Just a ton of people that we knew. Some I kind of recognized and a lot that I didn't. This was a new environment. We walk in. I'm immediately stiff and sore because I've been sitting in a car like this for 3.5 hours plus. And I will never forget this as long as I live. I sit down for about 2-3 minutes. And Jay goes, "Hey, Jim, you taking a break already? Come on, you just got here. Let's lift some stuff, huh?" For a split second, I was like, come on, I'm a guest. But then the reality kicks in. I am part of the family. I am not just someone they're bringing in to promote the movie. I'm part of the family. And when the family goes to work, the whole family works. So my instincts and my loyalty kicked in. We started carrying stuff back and forth. We formed assembly lines to get things in and out of the truck. And I did the best that I could under the circumstances. If I hadn't lost that 15 pounds prior to this trip, most of what I did would just not physically have been possible. And I really appreciate Jay showing patience and perseverance when it came to that. Other than getting me to hop to, he didn't bitch, yell, or complain. He just was happy to get the help, and I was happy to help him. It felt good to be involved. So obviously, with each passing Retropalooza, I'm going to be there, I'm going to carry stuff, and I'm only going to get better at it as time goes on, because it was a blast. It really was fun. Don't tell Jay I said that, because he might make me show up earlier in Arlington in October. Jay, don't watch this. After we'd helped with some of the major loading and unloading of the trucks, while things were being set up on the floor, Rob and I were asked to do some things that were a bit more suited to our relative fatigue levels. He sat us down at one of the tables. We started assembling weekend passes, and we did that for about probably an hour. Maybe not quite that long. And although at first I'm like, this is going to take forever, we did get a system going. We had some great conversations, and it was fun. I got really good at saying they can help you. As people walked in to the convention center and walked up to us asking to check in with their badges early, and we're like, we're just building stuff. You can go over there. And while I'm at it, the people running the front desk for entry and security and everything in between were on the top of their game all weekend. I always felt welcome and taken care of. We didn't really want for anything, and no one waited on us hand and foot, but you were never too far away from someone who was there to help. It was really something that made the experience so much better. I've done a lot of touring as a musician, and I've done a few conventions here and there, although in terms of a traditional convention, this was my first as a guest. So it was really a different experience for me. when you're touring in a band and you do festivals, like multi-day festivals, they're a lot like a convention except with live music. And that is a bit of a looser concept than, say, what we're doing in a convention where there's a schedule, but there's a lot more freeform stuff. So taking care of human needs is not something that anyone's really looking after. You, as a band, you show up, you load in, you play whenever you're supposed to play, you hang out, sell your merch. At the end of it, you get paid, and that's that. Whereas with a convention, there's a lot more person-to-person interactivity throughout the entire period, and you have to kind of be on your toes. So, but I loved it. Once we finished doing the badges, or getting as far with the badges as we were going to, we opted to go back to the hotel. And we were there maybe an hour before Jay got back. The front desk, with the assistance of Jay over the phone, was able to get me into the room that was booked for me. I happened to be staying with Jay, as well as a friend of ours, 16-Bit Pete. I'd heard tell of Pete, but I really wasn't as a tech whiz. If you think I'm smart, Pete is eons ahead of me. And I have some things to show you here in a second that'll kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. He got back into the room well before Jay got back. And I was just relaxing, trying to keep the muscles stretched and everything else. And we started talking, and I realized how easygoing he was.
So we got into town around 2:30 or so. Me and Robbo came down from Order 42. And we spent the afternoon, well, part of the afternoon, helping set up and helping them build badges and stuff, because it's just what you do. And then got to hang out with good old John Blue Riggs and Boogie and my Retro Life gaming, and it was, even though everyone was just setting up, it was really casual. It was like, wow, here's all these people I've only talked to on social media, and I get to see them. And no matter how many times I have that experience, it's always like, wow. I don't get starstruck or anything. I just like meeting people. And I got to meet a lot of cool people today. And I got to see my friend Zap Crystal again and her husband, and they're doing awesome. And Eric was a lot of fun today, man. I missed that guy more than I thought I did. Like, he's my friend. I miss him. But then when you see him, it's like, oh, dude, I fucking missed you. It was a lot of fun. And we haven't even started yet. We had a great dinner at Chewy's, laughing and carrying on, having a great time. We're just getting started. Retropalooza 2021. Damn, it's good to be here.
Turns out that Pete had brought with him a GameCube, Game Boy player attached that he had modded. He soldered a chip to the board and also modified the output of the GameCube to 720p native right from the back of the box. Well, what this chip does is that it allows you to put a blank disc inside of the GameCube, which will then in turn spin up, making the device think there's a disc in there, but it reroutes it to read an SD card plugged into the underside of the device, where he has a lot of backup games in there for use, for ease of use, right? Including the Game Boy player startup disc, in case you lose that sort of thing. It's very important. And here's a video showing him playing a Game Boy Advance game right through the GameCube. Bear in mind that everything being done here is on the original hardware, so there's no emulation being taken place. It's just a different way of getting the data to process through the hardware. Check it out.
Go ahead.
That's this controller disc working on right now, but got the Xeno chip modded GameCube. Got a nice little firmware disc. Keep it up to date. We're gonna see if the ROM file for the Game Boy player will still work without the Game Boy startup disc.
All right. So you want to put the cartridges in?
We're putting Crash Bandicoot and Drist.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, because they used to do it because it would mean that you couldn't get a hold of it.
You just found it and you just blend it.
There's a couple
Well, I mean, you know what? I would
Oh, there we go.
Boxes do that a lot.
All
right. It works! 16-bit Pete, that's me! I'm a genius!
I'm hiring 16-bit Pete to do my mods, and you should too. I don't care who you are. That's just really, really cool. And he's telling me about the mod itself. It's not that expensive. It's less than $100 when all things are said and done. Now, granted, that particular GameCube is a sought-after model, and the Game Boy player on the bottom is also an expensive item. He was seeing if he could actually sell that device in its entirety over the weekend, which we talked about at length. And I'm going to talk to you a bit more about that later in the video, because he was very keen to say, hey, I made this, isn't this cool? And he was really excited. And I was excited for him, because anytime someone puts that kind of work into something and they're establishing themselves as an expert in the field, you want to make sure that they get all the credibility that they can. And sometimes just being able to show off, hey, I did this, and I'm going to sell my service, the service being, of course, the installation of the chip and demonstrating how it works. That's what he ended up doing. And we had some fun with that, so we'll talk about that in a bit. So we're still on Friday night. Jay ends up coming back to the room, and then a bunch of other people like John Blue Riggs and Zap Crystal and Stephen Wright, Kenny, the voice of Bowser. The list goes on and on. Rob was there. Tim was there at one point. And then certainly I should not neglect to mention that prior to getting back to the hotel proper, we did stop and get some food with most of the aforementioned people, including Boogie2988, who I was excited to meet. I've been watching him for a very long time. And I was hoping that based upon what the Game Chaser crew had told me, especially Eric, 8-Bit Eric, I love you to death, brother. We sat together all weekend long, me and Eric. It was great to get to catch up with him and so forth. And I met Pat the NES Punk for the first time. We kind of knew of each other, but we had never met before. So it's just this whirlwind of getting to know people. And we go to have dinner, come back to the room to have a few drinks, party and so forth. And things start to get into full swing with this huge crew. And then Boogie shows up and he sits down next to me and we get to talking. And man, Boogie is just the most down-to-earth, nice guy with really raunchy sense of humor like myself. We got along, in my opinion, like a house of fire. It was great. And Boogie, if you happen by some chance to be watching this, which I hope you do, man, thank you so much for spending the time with us, because I know what it's like when travel can wear you out and so forth. I know the struggles you've been through recently, and I'm seeing your health journey, and it inspires me. So from one man of a generation to another, man, you're an inspiration, and I truly consider you a friend, and I cannot wait to hang out with you again, hopefully in Arlington this fall. So things are going on. Kenny comes in, and then next thing I know, we're exchanging Bowser gurgles at top volume. Like I was doing a very different type of job, because there's no way I'm going to do what Kenny does. I wanted to do my version of like a more sinister, if it was an anime thing, like. And we were discussing like nodules and calluses on the vocal. And you open this up. It was such a nerdy thing. And I had such a good damn time. And then as time goes on, people are starting to fall out. Rob does not drink. He needs sleep just like everybody else. He tips out the door around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, to my recollection. Slowly people start to filter out. Next thing you know, it's down to myself, Jay, Billy, Eric, and Pete. And we're just hanging out, having a good time. Next thing I know, someone brings out a big bottle of Jim Beam, and I remember very few things after that, but I know that it was a true bro hang. Like, we're all just yipping and roaring and carrying on and talking through things and having funny talks and serious talks and everything in between, and it was cool. We never get a chance to hang out as a group, especially not in those combinations. And I got to know Eric better. I got to know Jay better. I got to know Billy better. I got to know Pete better because I had just met him. So it was cool. It was really great. We ended up going to bed 3 or 4 or 5 maybe in the morning. And the majority of people had to be up and in the center by around 9 o'clock. So that was ill-advised that we stayed up that late. But that's all right. One problem. I set an alarm and I accidentally shut it off. I don't remember shutting it off, except I just kind of went, oof. And I slept in, which by itself shouldn't have been a huge deal. But when you combine the fact that everyone else was at the convention center well ahead of me, and it was nearing noon, and no one had heard from me, they knocked on my door, and I hadn't answered, there was some legitimate concern if I was okay. And because everyone was already over there and they didn't have a way to get into the room that we knew for a fact was reliable, they went ahead and they called the hotel office and said, hey, we don't know what's going on. We don't have any reason to think anything's wrong, but we're not certain everything's right either. Would you please go do a wellness check on XYZ room? Our friend Jim is in it. So the hotel desk manager comes up to the room, dutifully knocks, opens the door, says my name, and she's like, opens the door. Jim? Yeah. You're asleep. Yes, I am. I need you not to be asleep. Folks are worried about you. All right. So I get up, shake the cobwebs, get some water on my face, start to get dressed, take some medication because that was needed and so forth. And Allie came over to pick me up, which was gracious of her. I downed a Powerade in like 15 seconds or something and ended up at the convention center much later than I anticipated. And I felt awful about it. I don't want to worry anybody. I don't want to trip anything up. I didn't really have anything I had to be doing, but I did miss out on my friend Eric's panel. I also missed out on Boogie's panel, and I felt really bad about that, and I still feel bad about it. And I'm sorry, guys. If you're watching this, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'm just an old man, needed some sleep. It won't happen as bad again. But I get there, and I see that Rob has already brought in this box that I had brought with me. It had just a slew of games, and I'm going to throw a picture here on the screen for you. I had gotten this box just shy of 2 years ago, and I've accumulated other copies of things in there since, but the majority of it came from the Toy Expo in the beginning of 2020. I got a pretty good deal on the box at the time, and I'd already cherry-picked the stuff that I knew that I needed. I didn't want to sit on this thing after I already had what I wanted, given that there's a lot of great condition stuff in there of reasonable value. Nothing crazy, nothing nuts, but there was enough that someone might want something. And there's no better place at a convention to unload things you don't want that someone else might. So the idea was that I could turn a small, very modest profit, but still get someone something they needed for a good price. And that was the goal. I consulted with a few different dealer friends of mine to make sure that I wasn't full of crap when it came to what the values were. And it turned out my initial turn at it was very high comparative to the condition they were in, because the price charting didn't quite line up with what I actually had. And that was okay. That just means I knew what I'm dealing with. I'm not going to overcharge anybody, which was, of course, paramount. I don't want to rip anybody off. So all of that said, I sit down and start to kind of commiserate with the rest of us that have hangovers, including Eric, which, Godzilla bless him, he was having a hell of a rough day, and I'm glad that he's feeling better. It happens to all of us, man. It's happened to me. I'm surprised I wasn't right there with you. I was in bad shape, but trust me when I tell you, Eric had it worse. And man, you're a trooper for sticking it out. Because not only did you do the deed, but you woke up on time and you made it there and you did your panel, and then you did Boogie's panel. You really pushed yourself, and that just shows your dedication, and I love you for it, man. And Saturday being the first day of the convention, especially by the time that I got there, in my head I was thinking more people would be walking around. And although there were, we were off to the side. All the guest booths are over there versus the vendors being on a more dedicated, longer space. I don't have a lot of video to show you with regard to that, as my camera kind of gave me a hard time when I tried to do a walk around. but I will try to explain. As you first walk into the convention, you've got doors on this side of ticketing and doors on this side of ticketing, and those are your boundaries. And you've got 3 different aisles with vendors lining all 3 aisles, all the way around. But as you come through this door on the left, as the vendors begin, there's this little alcove off to the side. It's all open, with one vendor in the center of this kind of a U area. So you can kind of walk through the whole thing. And we're up against this wall next to where they're doing the panels. So we weren't getting a ton of foot traffic, and that was okay. People were interested in what I was selling, but they weren't sure if that's what they're going to get, and that's okay. I ended up selling a couple copies of a couple of the games that I had, even though I was trying to get rid of the whole thing for a good price. It just didn't happen on the first day, but I met a lot of cool people. And some people kept coming back, and we'd have great conversations, and that's what it's about, because you want to talk about games and toys and the things you like, and they, of course, have questions about the movie and YouTube and things like that. So it was great fun. And because I got there so late, it wasn't like I had a lot of time to sit there. The thing closes up at 5. We closed the place down, made sure everyone was taken care of, and we went back to the hotel. A lot of folks went out that night, dinner and main event gaming, things like that. I was too tired. I was still staving off the whole hangover bit, to be perfectly honest. And surely there were others of us that were tired as well. I wasn't the only one. We ended up staying, and I was just so tired, so sore. And I know my body well enough to know that going anywhere was a bad idea. I needed to recuperate and make sure I was okay. So when Rob has finally had enough, and he says, "Dude, I'm hungry. I want to get something to eat. Do you want me to bring you something back?" I said, "Yes, I'm not leaving." So it took us several minutes to get things together, figure out what we were going to do, but off he went. And true to his word, after he went to Jersey Mike's and ate his sandwich, he brought me back mine, which hit the spot in ways I can't even begin to tell you. There are times when you are so hungry that you don't know how hungry you are, and then the food hits your mouth and you're like, "I'm going to eat this whole thing." So I did. And the whole time I'm trying to eat very quietly, because Jay is 15 feet away in his bed snoring away, and that guy works so damn hard. I'll be damned if I'm going to be the reason he doesn't get some rest. So thankfully I did not wake him up, ate my sandwich. It was great. By then, Pete was back in the room, and Jay got up and said, "Okay, I'm going to go decompress." And he ended up in his brother's room talking about business and things like that, things you decompress after a day like that. And Pete and I were just kind of hanging out, and we both were in and out of various naps, which was a good thing, because when Jay rolled in the wee hours, we got to talking, and of course we're up till 5 o'clock in the morning again. But that's all right. So we all get up, or rather, I get up right away when I'm supposed to, get showered, get dressed. I should not neglect to mention that there was a towel shortage in the bathroom, and we can't figure out exactly what happened. We don't think it was on purpose by any stretch of the imagination. But I get out of the shower to find out that there's 2 or 3 clean towels, and they're all hand towels. I am not a small guy, so drying off this body with a towel like this big, not a lot of fun. But I made it happen, and I went down, got some coffee, went to the convention center, and was ready to go. And people are walking around. It's the last day of the convention, but oddly enough, the foot traffic is picking up like crazy, and started getting more interest in the games, and sold a few more copies of things. And well, as luck would have it, someone did drop by, and very keen viewers, if you're fans of the Game Chasers, might recognize this guy. I'm not telling you who it is, nor is he telling you who he is, but if you know your Game Chasers lore, you'll know who he is. So you just got a hell of a deal, didn't you?
I don't know. I mean, I bought a box of sealed games from you, and we'll see what happens with it.
You're gonna come to Arlington to the phone and be like, "Hey, fat fuck." No, legitimately, he got a pretty good deal, and I'm happy. So that's what it's all about.
I'll share the wealth too, because most of the systems in here I don't collect for. I'm just a Nintendo guy.
Right.
So I'll probably find people who are into this kind of stuff. I'll post on some of the private groups on Facebook and just be like, hey, does anybody out here need any of this stuff?
And at that price, you could afford to sell them for $3 a piece and still make up on the deal.
Yeah, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would not go too low on that 10 shoe. I definitely wouldn't go too low on the Tony Skater.
So I'll probably keep those. Like, there are a few games in there where it's like, ooh, I don't have this.
Exactly.
It looks good. I will probably actually add this to my collection.
And a couple of them, you wouldn't think they're worth shit. But when you look them up, you're like, that's worth $7? Really? You know, so pound for pound, penny for penny, I think you're in good shape, brother. And I thank you so much.
Man, thanks for the Nintendo stuff.
No worries, brother. And that was great. This guy was like, look, I want to help out a fellow collector offload some things, and then hopefully help some friends of mine that need games like this get a good deal. We did the math, and if he sells these for just a couple bucks a copy, he's going to be really well off, and he's keeping a few things that he wanted, so everybody's happy, especially me, because now I can walk the floor and buy something. I wasn't tethered to that box. I wasn't worried about spending money I didn't have, because now I had money. It was great, so thank you, man. You really made my weekend. The first thing I did was walk the floor. There's a lot of great art booths here, some games. Some booths is already packed up or had lowered their inventory, so I didn't get a great look at everything. But the videos I've seen since show that there's a ton of stuff out there. People were getting killer deals, and that's awesome. I was on a beeline to get to OK Chief's booth. He and I are good buddies from the movie. He's my Snuggie Bear is what I call him. He always gives the best hugs. We're really good friends. I love this guy so much. He has hooked me up in so many ways on different gaming deals that we've done and some toy stuff too. And I made him a promise. I said, I'm collecting toys again. I want to start Masters of the Universe Origins, and I'm not in a hurry to get started. I want to buy the first anything of that line from you, because he's the best toy dealer that I know, personally, anyway. There's plenty of businesses I deal with that I adore, but he's a friend, like a really close friend, and I wanted to patronize him first. I wanted to get something from him first, and I did. I got a Motu Origins figure, and I got Stratos. Let me show you Stratos. He looks great. The box is a little worse for wear, but that happens with traveling and people picking it up and moving it around and stuff. But as Origin figures go, this guy is not the easiest to find. It's not horrible, but you're going to pay higher prices than you normally would. And he made sure that I wasn't gouged. He made a fair profit, you know, against the value of the figure, but I also didn't pay too much. So, bro, Chiefy, you chiefed it up, man. You made my day, and I love you for it. I kept moving around and looking at different things. There was again some art that I was very interested in. I never made it back over, but I did get a nice massage from one of the booths that had like these massage machines and stuff, and it was nice. It really helped out. But that's about the most eventful thing that happened at that point. I made my way back to the table, and it would appear that I made it just in time, because we had a gentleman pop by that had been swinging by the table on and off for the last 2 days, was a really dedicated fan of everything Game Chasers and 8-Bit Eric and Pat and everyone in between. And he just a really earnest, nice fella. If I remember correctly, he gave Eric a pristine instruction booklet for the NES game Panic Restaurant. If you know anything about NES, Panic Restaurant is fast becoming one of the hardest games to find, more so than others that may have a more legendary status. And manuals are even worse. This guy just pulls it out of a really well-packed baggie that had stuff around it to keep it nice, and just said, thank you for everything. And just gave it to him. And I cannot think of anyone in the Chasers family more deserving of a gift like that. Eric gets a lot of well-meaning flack from the fan base and some not so well-meaning. And for him to get something like that is well-deserved, because he's been very loyal to the Game Chasers and the surrounding friends like myself, and he was instrumental on the movie in keeping morale up, keeping us motivated, and challenging us to do our very best. So Eric, man, I'm so glad you got that manual, because you do deserve it. You were not slipping. You were in the right place at the right time, dude, just that's awesome. I'm so happy you got that, man. Then our benefactor comes back around with a gigantic bag full of stuff. I'm talking about miniature replicas of the Back to the Future hoverboard and shrink-wrapped Hollywood video rental games for Sega Genesis. Sports titles, but it was still a really cool artifact. He had like this Matchbox 66 Batmobile, not Matchbox, but that style of die-cast car. He had a couple books, like Gremlins, a Gremlins novelization, just a ton of stuff. And one thing immediately caught my eye. He came to me and said, "Hey, can you make sure everyone gets a piece of this?" And I said, "Absolutely," because he handed it to me, and most of the guys were walking around. Hey, I had first dibs, but I did not want to be greedy, as this was the first time this guy had met me. I didn't want to take away from what was meant for the rest of the guys. So I asked him if I could take a certain thing, and he said yes. And this is the picture that resulted from that. This is a great little piece. It's a back scratcher from Walt Disney World, and you can tell it's vintage not just because of the discoloration, but also the way that the logo is. And there's a sticker on the back as well. And I'm trying to find the copyright here. Okay, so there's no copyright year, but it's old, and I'm happy. It's a pretty cool little gift. I dug it. Thank you. As the guys were coming back to the tables, Pat included, I kind of said, "Hey, this gentleman brought this stuff. It's free. Take what you like." And Billy ended up with a pretty nice box from Mario is Missing on Super Nintendo. Not the easiest game to find. Not crazy, but not very easy. And the box, hey, it's worth something. And I knew he had the game. I said, "Here, you take this." He said, "Yeah, I'll take this." And everyone grabbed a few things here and there, and making sure everyone had stuff. And that hoverboard replica that I talked about, Rob had a brilliant idea. Game Dave was not at the convention, but we know he's a huge fan of the Back to the Future franchise. So Rob showed him it in a video Facebook message and said, "You want this?" So we made sure that Dave got that. You cannot deny that face. Once we had settled who's getting what, I looked at this pile of stuff that was left. It wasn't a ton. There were some scraps. And a lot of those sports games that were in the shrink wrap from the rental store stayed there, because I barely collect Genesis, and what I do collect, I don't care about the sports games. I'm basically tapped out on that stuff. And rather than it just sit there on the table, I wanted to figure something out. But before I did that, I did find one other thing that I would like. I asked the guys about it, and they said it was a good game. I don't have an N64, but Billy was encouraging. So you should take that. You'll probably like that. And he's talking about a boxed copy of Warzone for the 64. The insert is intact, if really dog-eared, and the game is in pretty good condition as well. And for the cost of nothing, you can't beat it. By the time this rolled around, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And it just so happens that the fella that bought my box of games came right back by to pick up that box of games. And I said, "Hey, open the box up." He goes, "What?" I'm like, "Open the box." And he opened the box, and I took everything else on the table, and I said, "Thank you for everything you've done for me and my friends over the years. You're a great guy. Here's a bonus." and I shoved something like 12 games, a bunch of manuals, tons of stuff right into the box and said, there's the icing on the cake for you. So now you have that much more value for this box that you paid what I consider to be a pretty decent price for. And I felt amazing about that because it just sweetened the deal and gave more variety. And some of that stuff are things that he does collect. Like there's a Game Boy manual in there that's in pristine condition, among other things. So it was nice to be able to say, thanks for taking a leap of faith. I know you've helped out my friends before, so it's time for me to help you out again. And cleared the table, which was a hugely good feeling because it was cool enough to sell the box because I wasn't sure I was going to sell any of it. And to be able to sell it and again, give somebody a deal, and it made my weekend. By this time, we were getting very close to the Game Chasers movie panel. Just as we're starting to rally in that direction for the panel, Tyler from My Retro Life Gaming comes over. And we'd been talking all weekend. He's a great, great frickin' guy. And he says, hey man, I've got these movie posters from when I was a teenager. They're original for the time period, as are the frames. And I know how much of a Lethal Weapon fan you are. Can I offer you a deal on this poster? And I huffed and I puffed and I hemmed and I hawed because Rob's car isn't huge. And I didn't have a much frame of reference on the size of the poster at the time. I didn't know where I was going to put it. And I was just generally unsure. I've always wanted this poster. And it was difficult. But ultimately, Rob's like, we will fit it in the car some way, somehow. And Tyler is like, I want you to have it. I know how much this movie means to you. So between these two good friends of mine, they convinced me to pay a very good price on a great poster. Let me show you. As you can see, it barely fits. It is huge. Huge. And as it turns out, I'm not too old for this shit. And I have to say, for all of my worry about where to put the thing, as soon as I got home, I found a nice slot right next to a piece of furniture that it would fit in without getting damaged or getting in the way. So no worries on that front. Right after I got the poster from Tyler, it dawned on me that I hadn't gone to my favorite booth at any Retropalooza-related event ever. Tim's wife, Elizabeth, makes some amazing pint glasses. You've probably seen them when I've guested on streams. I have one that's a Star Trek logo. I've got one that has Skeletor on it. I've got one with the Cobra logo on it. I've even got a couple others. But this weekend, I got 2 of them. And they both say Retropalooza on them, and they are beautiful. The way they apply the appliques on these glasses is kind of alchemy to me. It's some kind of a vinyl, and it's etched in the glass. It doesn't wash off no matter how hot the water is. It's insane. And on top of that, the glasses are really thick and wonderful. I've had no problems with them, and I've promised them every event I see them, I am buying glasses from them. So I am going to take a picture of this business card, which I'm going to show you now. It's Elizabeth from Sketchy Etchy Glass Designs. I know they were wondering about what kind of name, so you've heard me talk about Kiss My Glass, which Tim and I had come up with, and knowing Elizabeth and knowing what a sweetheart she is, it does not surprise me that she did not keep that name. So she is going with Sketchy Etchy Glass Designs in the DFW area. It's got all of her contact information here, and she's still got a pretty badass card here, which I'm always going to keep in my wallet. So if someone's talking about drinkware, I can pull this out and show them. There will be a link to their shop, their Facebook page, in the description, and I'm also going to create a short code from grindheadgym.com for it. There's no affiliate link. I don't make any money. I just want it to be memorable for you so that if you want a pint glass, you're going to Elizabeth and nobody else, and you will thank me for it. They are just that good. On top of that, the folks from the front office where I live dropped off the packages that came just after I left on Friday, so those are going to be in the next toy collecting video, which is coming in a couple days. So it was a whirlwind. And, you know, I haven't even talked about the fact that just after that, we did the panel. So the panel was great. When we first came in, before we even set up, there were people waiting. Here's a picture. Which is not a ton of people, but as it got closer to us starting, more and more people came in. There is video on Boogie's Twitter of him asking us a question, and it was pretty cool. We got a nice reaction. But we had a little over an hour to just talk about the movie and what it meant to us. And those of you that pre-ordered the Game Chaser movie Blu-ray, you're going to get that whole panel on the Blu-ray free of charge. That's a bonus feature for you guys. I don't know if that's going to end up anywhere else, but I can say if you pre-order the Blu-ray, you're getting it. And it was a really cool experience. It was the first time all of us got to get together in the same place in person and talk about the movie in almost 2 years. But as quickly as it started, it was over. I leave the stage, Rob leaves the stage, we go over the table, I gather up all my stuff, Rob disappears, and I just finish gathering my stuff, get ready to go. He comes back and says, all right, I'm ready, you ready? I said, I'm ready. And then we hop out the door. And immediately hop into the car, and we were on our way. We did make a minor detour. We weren't expecting to. We took about 10 minutes off the trip time, but that's okay. Stopped, got some food along the way, and once we got settled on the highway, it was as simple as that. We just kept going. It was nice and coasting. It was relatively smooth sailing once we got out of Houston proper. And I was home by 8:30 Sunday night. It was surreal. It seemed like I blinked and I was out of Houston and back home in Arlington. Just left with the memories of what had just happened to me over the course of a few days' time. And I just, to the entire Retropalooza staff and the attendees and the guests and everything, thank you for making it what it was. And to all my new friends, too numerous to mention, Falcro and to meet, Tyler, meeting him for the first time, Pat, John Blue Riggs, who was just a ton of fun, Boogie and Stephen Wright and Zap Crystal. Although we'd met, we hadn't really hung out that much before. Kenny, the list just it seems endless. And I worry that I'm going to forget to mention somebody, so I apologize for that. If I do, it's not intentional. There's no one to snub. There's no one I didn't enjoy spending time with. So if we hung out at any point in Retropalooza Houston, I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to doing it again in Arlington in October.
Attention Retropalooza, coming up in 5 minutes, we got John Riggs with Game Hacking Live in the panel room.
No one
John
cares.
Riggs in the panel room.
John. Love you, John.
Stick around for Comic Drake at 1 p.m. Comic Drake is going on at 1 p.m. in the panel room.
They have a chalkboard.
Remember, 1 p.m.
1 p.m. So today I just happened to wear my Cryptopsy shirt because I wanted to throw something in the face of like the whole family-friendly thing of the event, and I'm a dick. And only one person has recognized my shirt, and that's this guy. Yeah. Flo, if you're watching this, fuck you. But what would you say to him?
Best drummer there is right now.
I don't know about that.
Near the top 5. Okay, I'll put him top 5.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Even though you're named after a menstrual cycle, it's okay, buddy. I'm just kidding. Love you, Flo. Anything else you want to say out to all the grindheads in the universe?
Keep it brutal.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Those of you watching this video, thank you for taking the time to listen to my ramblings and memories about my first Retropalooza Houston. It was great, and I can't wait to do more of them. So in the meantime, may all of your grinds be merry, and look forward to the next video as soon as possible. Thanks.